Okay. Finding news about enterprise AI really kind of sucks. And it's something that I struggle with all the time. And probably you do too. And Troy does. And we've chatted about this a lot. You look at the news today and it's full of things about VC raises and consumer internet and self-driving cars. But it really isn't that much about the enterprise. And if you do see it, you have to wade through and try and find the really interesting information. So what we're going to do in this new series, where we're going to trawl through the news, is help you by digging through all that's out there and trying to pull out those nuggets that particularly focus on the enterprise, and really just have a chat about them, see what we think is interesting, see where they flow all along the trend lines for AI, and find out what's interesting, so we can kind of wrap that up in a bit of a short, quick few-minute nuggets for you to digest.
I thought what was super interesting about this is I sort of had tasked you, Ian, with, hey, go dig up some interesting news. And you and I have been exchanging some links on sort of different sites. And we both went through weeks and weeks and weeks of these newsletters, and we're like, there's not a lot of interesting news out here, or at least it's not being shared widely, or it's hard to make sense of it. It's more of a forest for the trees problem. Like, here are a whole pile of trees, but what's the meaning of all of what's the combined meaning of all of these stories, and how does it sit in the bigger picture, the bigger story of the sort of evolution of AI? So I had to laugh when, we were looking at some of the tabs, and you're like, I don't know, there's not a lot of interesting stuff out there, but here are some examples. So I'd say, let's just go for it. Let's give this a go. Let's go through some of the things you found. And I may or may not have, additional comments or thoughts on them, or other bits, that I've learned in the space, but I think we should just dig through and see what we learn.
Yeah. So tee up the first one is Ricoh Solutions helps insurance providers resolve claims faster. It sounds quite straightforward, doesn't sound that interesting. Obviously, it's a big enterprise use case in the insurance space,
Right.
claims management, but no doubt 101 companies working with insurers to do their claims management use cases. But what's interesting here is they're building basically a cloud service. And I think that's the way everything's going to start to move. And this is a good example of a company doing that. So Ricoh are a solutions integrator, a consultant. So they've probably worked with a number of insurance companies and decided, like many consultancies do, let's build this as a white label. But rather than kind of going to offer that as something that you build into your business, this is something that's a service. And I think that's really the key point, is all of these major use cases across any kind of industry, somebody's going to build it as what I like to call answers as a service, or decisions as a service, where you just send them in this case, your claims information, and you'll get back some information like yes, no, or valid or not, whatever it is that particular service does. And I think that's a major trend. So I'm always really interested to see good examples of those coming out for the enterprise.
I think what's interesting about this is, if you look at insurance and you look at the span of, let's say, the legacy on the one side, all the way to the lemonade insurance on the far right. Let's say the legacy takes a long time to apply for insurance, takes a long time to process claims. Lemonade on the far right, AI centered from the beginning, saying you can apply for insurance. We'll give you a yes, no on your application in 30 seconds or less. We'll pay out claims in 3 minutes. Like, they have these outrageous claims, not outrageous. I mean, they're outrageous to the traditional industry, but they can only build them because they built themselves on an AI base and a mobile base and a SaaS application base first. And then you get these sorts of plays that sit in the middle that say, hey, legacy player, you could go buy a bunch of pieces and parts and components and some OCR and 50 different things and try to build your own solution and to try to make your service better, right? There's a great quote here in the second paragraph. 95% of customers maintain speed of settlement is the most important factor in determining satisfaction rate. Customer sat is such a huge score. So clearly they're saying, you could go build this stuff yourself, or we'll take this entire, I think you would use the phrase buyer, not customer journey, but business process, this entire business process of settling of claim. And we'll just package it up and sell it back to you, and then you can in turn offer it to your customer. Separate from AI, that is a trend, right? We talked about it in retail banking, where there are literally whole large banks that just said, oh, we bought an entire retail banking platform off the shelf from a third party, and now we're offering it because it's faster to buy that than it is to build it in-house. So I think that's kind of an X and a Y. It's like, are you buying components and assembling them in-house, or are you buying entire business process chunks from a third party? That's on the one dimension. The other dimension is like, how technical is what's in that stack? Is it just mobile apps, or does it include AI?
Yeah, and I think one of the if I'm building this service for myself, I'm the enterprise buyer, and I've got my use case. I think the key question there for you is your process a commodity? Does it actually add any value for the customer? In this case,
your mic just cut. Something happened to your mic. You just sound super far away all of a sudden.
Oh, I don't really care. I saw a bank recently, they bought in a core banking platform, and they even bought in a MasterCard. For the customer, one MasterCard is just the same as another one. So it made no sense at all for them to go ahead and build their own MasterCard transaction processing service, because the customer really didn't care. And I think this is a good example of that. Obviously, you can, you might say claims management, you can make it better, but certainly if you're competing against Lemonade, you need to get your game up, improve your game really quickly. So good example there.
I don't know if you ever knew or read the book IT Doesn't Matter by Nicholas Carr. One of my favorite things in the world. And the fundamental premise is most of your IT is irrelevant. It's not creating distinguishing strategic advantage. So just buy it at the lowest possible cost and get it into market, because it's not really where your business strategy and customer value is coming from.
And that's a key with these services is it's low cost. It could even be the lowest cost, but on top of that, it's the fastest. It's the easiest way to get it in. Lowest risk, lowest friction, lowest headaches. Just plug the damn thing in and go. And you're good.
Yeah, you've been building, AI related products and programs and companies for 25 plus years. What's the risk level of going to somebody like a Ricoh and saying, oh, we've done this for 20 different insurance companies, versus you assembling your team, putting the budget together, putting the team together, training them, figuring out the scope, and building something like this to improve customer satisfaction by improving speed of settlement? I mean, the risks are so high.
They are, yeah. And that's where, we get into all this conversation about where's the ROI? Well, you blew the ROI building it yourself.
Exactly.
just plug this thing in. Interestingly, I had a use case I did with HSBC a while ago, and I found a software as a service for exactly the use case, but everyone wanted to build it in-house. The POC for that use case took 15 minutes. Because I just got some documents and I copied it over, there were anonymized ones, copied it onto the site, it processed them, showed me the results, POC done. I didn't even need to run a budget for it. I did it while I was drinking my coffee.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing, the build it yourself is it's such a problem across the industry, particularly across the legacy industry. Everybody's like, oh, we're going to do a big new strategic push. I can't wait to build my team and get more power and more budget and more responsibility and build my career. It's like, yeah, but what's our real goal here? Oh, it's to actually drive customer satisfaction as quickly as we possibly can with the lowest possible risk. Oh, well, we should probably just buy that off the shelf. It's the age old, buy it off the shelf or do it yourself. It's been around forever. It'll always be around, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the difference here is when we go to cloud, if you have your infrastructure right already, you can just basically plug and play. So you don't have to build anything. But most businesses are not that mature yet.
So that was the week's interesting news in AI. We're going to do a radical edit on this, and we'll see what comes out of it. But I think that was a good start, good kickoff. And we'll see how this goes. We'll flex with this, and we'll try some more ideas, and we'll go through and do different analysis on different types of stories, maybe some deep dives on some, and more of a skimming and the wave tops on other conversations. So hopefully you'll join us for some future sessions on these.
Yeah. Any ideas? If you've got thoughts or feedback, just send them along. But it's really going to be a casual, run through of the news, but again, this real focus on what matters to you if you're in the enterprise, particularly.